I'd been told to head to the city of Amritsar in the northwestern part of India, about 30 miles from the Pakistani border.
Here come the Akali Nihangs. They're in full battle cry. Terrifying warriors. They're bristling with weapons. But their signature weapon was this, the chakram. It's a dangerous throwing weapon.
And it isn't just thrown by warriors on foot. They also throw it from horseback when circling a block of infantry.
Only when they get alongside can they throw them like that. Can you imagine them going round and round the enemy, circling the flank, turning around, hurling their chakrams into them, causing absolute devastation? As if 20 ways of throwing it from the ground and from horses wasn't enough, they also threw the chakra from elephants. They would hurl them down on their enemies. This is a devastating war machine, absolutely raining them down.
Well, in Japan's ancient society, the samurai were the warrior class, admired, respected, and feared. They established a legacy of supreme sword-fighting skills that have been passed down through the ages. But the sword wasn't always the samurai's weapon of choice. At first, they used to rely more on the horse and the bow.
This is called yabusame. It's still practiced as a sacred rite in Japan today. Mounted archers were highly effective, and in the early battles of the samurai, the warriors distinguished themselves by their prowess with the bow. But they also carried the sword, which they used to great effect when closing with the enemy.
But the importance of the sword increased gradually, and one of the reasons for that was the introduction of firepower.
In 1543, the Portuguese introduced the arquebus to Japan. And it resulted in even more infantry warfare and a greater reliance on the katana.
Clearly, the repeating crossbow was ideally suited for the urban, guerrilla-style warfare of the Boxer Rebellion. And it had a long history of being used in towns and villages. This was the peasant's weapon. It took no particular skill to use it, and the materials are inexpensive and available. Although the design is sophisticated, it was easy to build. It was known as the home protection weapon, and every peasant household owned one to protect themselves against marauding invaders. And those invaders were horse archers. Horses are big, soft targets, and so the relative inaccuracy of the repeating crossbow didn't matter. Massed volleys of arrows against mass hordes of horsemen. But imagine repeating crossbows on those ramparts. Imagine thousands of Chads, terrifying enough. But imagine thousands of Chads with repeating crossbows. Tens of thousands of bolts raining down on massed hordes of cavalry. Absolutely terrifying. The duel began as an ancient right of law in Northern Europe. The Vikings in particular always had the right to challenge any legal judgment with the wager of battle. And this was the first duel. During the Middle Ages, this ancient right was transferred to the trial by combat. In a Christian age, it was believed that God would decide the victor. It wasn't until the 16th century that the duel changed from being a legal right to a social custom. The civilian duel was a craze that accounted for thousands of lives. The sword had always been the emblem of the ruling class, but now, for the first time, it was being worn with civilian dress. This was the age of the rapier. From the Spanish, espada ropera, a rapier was a sword for civilians as opposed to a soldier's weapon. It was a classic dueling sword. It was also the age of the wheel-lock, which was the first pistol. And because of its single-handed operation, the wheel-lock was easily carried into battle by cavalry. And by the 17th century, some duels were being fought on horseback with wheel-lock pistols. By the late 17th century, the rapier had been superseded by the more elegant but deadly small sword. Even after the introduction of the flintlock pistol, it was still the norm to duel with swords. Swords were considered the proper weapons of honour. By 1750, officers were winning glory on the battlefield with the flintlock pistol, and it gradually became acceptable, indeed fashionable, for them to settle their private affairs of honour with the same. And that was the birth of the dedicated dueling pistol.
Now that the blowpipe is ready, Ricardo has suggested that we go and test it in the jungle.
Charlie, have you got any final tips for me?
Yes, you have to use very special pepper.
Really? And what do I do with that?
Well, you have to put it in your mouth, got to chew it.
Why is that?
Because it will wake you up and it gives you more energy to your at the time you blow the gun.
That is hot, Charlie.
Yes.
That is fire. That is fire. It's burning me. Yes. Now that's also making my cheeks contract.
Cheeks contract.
Do you think that's going to give me a better, better puff?
Better puff.
Okay, let's see. Blowpipes are weapons of stealth. And one of the advantages of having a very long pipe is that you can feed it through the undergrowth and still stay camouflaged. Very pleased with that. So, the blowpipe, it's stealthy, it's accurate. I'm very pleased with this shot. Chad, you've got a hard job to beat.